All right, well, when it comes to millennials and money, it appears they aren't that different from other generations in how they spend. They just have less of it. This according to a new Deloitte study that looked at consumer spending across generations. The study found the net worth of American consumers under the age of 35 has fallen by more than a third since 1996. So joining us now is principal at the Deloitte Center for Consumer Insight, Jeff Simpson. And Jeff, I just want to get started with how bad this is for millennials like myself when you're looking at how much worse off we are.
Well, worse off is relative. Financially, you're not as well off as the generations that came before you. There's real financial pressure. Probably the biggest surprise in releasing this work is how much financial pressure that we're seeing against the millennial cohort. It's really dramatic. You mentioned it's 34% down from someone in the same age group since 1996. So it's significant.
And how is this impacting different industries like alcohol and restaurants? The fact that millennials have less income?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what's really interesting is millennials still want the same things that my generation wanted and my parents wanted, but they're under so much more financial pressure that they're not able to afford some of those things. So it's certainly pervasive in things like apparel. Let's use apparel, for example, because it's really relevant. They're still buying the same number of items. So we're still selling the same number of jackets and T-shirts and jeans and all those types of things, but there's really significant price compression. So while we're selling the same number of items, the revenue generated from those items is significantly lower because of the price compression. And historically, we've seen that in categories like electronics and some of the sort of consumables, but now we're seeing it in categories like apparel. And what it's reflecting is this financial pressure that they're under. Yeah. And the financial pressure is being driven by, in fact, this rising non-discretionary expense. So education expense, there's a lot of discussion around, loan balances and those types of things. Education's gone up, food's gone up, healthcare has gone up, and it's really put stress on these folks. So not only do they have less money to spend, but the non-discretionary expenses are coming up. So they're getting pressured at both ends, and it's playing out across the spectrum in retail.
Hi, Carlton English here. So can you talk more about it? I mean, do you see that it's more the low wages? Wages have been stagnant largely for about 40 years, or is it really, the fact that the cost of college is increasing? I mean, do you see where the pressure is coming from? Which angle more?
It's the non-discretionary expenses are significantly higher, and so that's been real pressure. But there's also a really interesting undercurrent here. From an income standpoint, there's some differential. But when you get into sort of net worth and some of those longer term views, it gets even more acute. So as they start to enter life stages where they want to buy houses or make some of those bigger sort of life stage purchases, they just don't have the net worth to do it. So it's impacting today some of these categories that we've already talked about, but there's another wave coming as they begin to look at larger purchases as they get older. They just don't have the net worth to do that. So I think this is going to play out for quite a while.
Yeah, I think you're preaching to the choir here, Jeff. But nonetheless, thank you very much for taking the time to break all that down. A very important issue, especially as you mentioned, as millennials continue to age. Jeff Simpson, thank you so much.
Thank you.